Hello. Whenever I have the honor of being invited to say a word in public about Galway Kinnell, I go down to the river and wait for inspiration to come to me across the waters. And so I went down to the Hudson River today, and there came to me across the waters this, do I have it? Yes. This inspiration. Message to Galway Kinnell. Tonight, all over the world, by singing light, you are being read. In a bazaar at Fez, someone is reading What a Kingdom It Was. And a rookie in his bat bag on the road with the socks carries 2 flower herding on Mount Monadnocks. Near Hibiscus, on his royal lava crags, a Kamehamehan holds his body rags to his breast. And on the sea somewheres, a sailor weeps into her book of nightmares. And inked and dog-eared in Peru is a kissed copy of the avenue bearing the initial of Christ into the New World. And packed when the scrolls of the tents are furled and carried on their tongues by Sephards and Kurds are mortal acts, mortal words. And up in the sky, an idolatclast astronaut is reading the past and missing the earth, dear grindlestone one misses when one has lived a long time alone. And in some pavilion of hardy silk, a Gaul in Bonnefoy is reading Rilke. All your readers in the universe who have for your work no imperfect thirst, your readers, if I may be so bold as to say, on our hearts strong is your hold. On the tree of time, below you and above you, they asked me to tell you tonight that they love you. With this, we all lift a glass as well, and not so formal as to Galway Kinnell. We thank you from our hearts, where you live always, to each of us our own, one, Galway.
Well, thank you, Sharon, so much for the most elegant introduction I've ever had. I'm very grateful to for the Wallace Stevens Prize, and I thank the Academy chancellors for choosing to give it to me. It's a great honor, and it's a prize especially dear to me because all my writing life I have revered the poems of Wallace Stevens before I even published a book. He was the recipient of the only fan letter I've ever sent to a poet I didn't know. Tree suggested that I read a couple of my early poems, or earlier poems, one early poem and one less early, and one new one. So that's what I will do. But first, I want to read a fragment of 11 lines of Wallace Stevens' Sunday Morning, which I know many of you know and also, like me, admire. We live in an old chaos of the sun, or old dependency of day and night, or island solitude, unsponsored, free, of that wide water inescapable. Deer walk upon our mountains, and the quail whistle about us their spontaneous cries. Sweet berries ripen in the wilderness, and in the isolation of the sky at evening, casual flocks of pigeons make ambiguous undulations as they sink downward to darkness on extended wings. Now the poem I'll read from early is one I wrote while teaching at Sarah Lawrence College, where I taught 1 year or 2 years or something. Quite long ago, and I was drifting around. And a student, not my student, but one I had seen on the campus, came into my office and told me that her love affair was ending and that she was not so sure she could survive. We talked for a while, and then I asked her to promise to come back to see me before the day was out. And when she did come back, I read her this poem, which I had written in the interim. And it's called Wait, because when such a seeming catastrophe came upon me when I was very young, or youthful, I found that I thought, I can't live in this world anymore without her. And then, as days went by, the feeling went away. And one day, it was gone. Wait. Wait for now. Distrust everything if you have to, but trust the hours. Haven't they carried you everywhere up to now? Personal events will become interesting again. Hair will become interesting. Pain will become interesting. Buds that open out of season will become interesting. Second-hand gloves will become lovely again. Their memories are what give them the need for other hands. And the desolation of lovers is the same. That enormous emptiness carved out of such tiny beings as we are asks to be filled. The need for the new love is faithfulness to the old. Wait. Don't go too early. You're tired, but everyone's tired. But no one is tired enough. Only wait a little and listen. Music of hair, music of pain, music of looms weaving, all our loves again. Be there to hear it. It will be the only time. Well, this is a more recent early poem, I wrote it in the McDowell colony in New Hampshire, where you can go if they accept you and spend a couple of months in a little cabin in the woods, and they feed you and bring out your lunch to you, so you won't have to come in and go out again. And I decided to get the most out of the place, and I actually moved into my little cabin, which everyone gets, and moved my desk. My desk was there, of course, but moved my bed out there too, and did my cooking out there, though I came in for dinner and the evening's festivities, and then I went out early in the morning, and or I should say late at night, and put my stove was, I got it going, and I put my oatmeal on top of the stove and left it there all night, and then in the morning had this marvelous oatmeal. Then I ran into one of the other people there, a painter, and he said, "Galway, how come we never see you at breakfast?" And I said, I told him I ate oatmeal alone in my, I ate oatmeal in my cabin. And he said, he actually stepped back as if he was staggered by something. And he said, "Alone?" And I said, "Yes, alone." And he reeled away, and I never saw him again. But I thought over his reaction, and one day I thought I had the secret of it, so I wrote this poem. I didn't get the secret of it, but without meeting this loony fellow, I would never have written this poem that I kind of like. Oatmeal. I eat oatmeal for breakfast. I make it on the hot plate and put skimmed milk on it. I eat it alone. I'm aware it's not good to eat oatmeal alone. Its consistency is such that it is better for your mental health if somebody eats it with you. That is why I often think up an imaginary companion to have breakfast with. Possibly it is even worse to eat breakfast with an imaginary companion. Nevertheless, yesterday morning I ate my oatmeal with John Keats. Keats said I was right to invite him due to its glutinous texture, gluey lumpishness, hint of slime, and unusual willingness to disintegrate. Oatmeal must never be eaten alone. He said it's perfectly okay, however, to eat it with an imaginary companion, and he himself had enjoyed memorable porridges with Edmund Spenser and John Milton. He also told me about writing the Ode to a Nightingale. He had a hard time finishing it, he said. "Oh, you had a heck of a time." Those were his words. He said he wrote it quickly on scraps of paper, which he then stuck in his pocket. But when he got home, he couldn't figure out the order of the stanzas. And he and a friend spread the papers on a table, and they made some sense of them, but he isn't sure to this day if they got it right. He still wonders about the occasional sense of drift between stanzas, and the way here and there a line will go into, here or there a line will go into the configuration of the Moslem at prayer, then raise itself up and peer about, then lay itself down, slightly off the mark, causing the poem to move forward with God's reckless wobble. He said someone told him that later in life Wordsworth heard about the scraps of paper and tried shuffling some stanzas of his own, but only made matters worse. When breakfast was over, John recited To Autumn. He recited it slowly with much feeling, and he articulated the words lovingly, and his odd accent sounded sweet. He didn't offer the story of writing To Autumn. I doubt if there is much of one, but he did say the sight of a just-harvested oat field got him started on it. And two of the lines, for summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells, and thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours, came to him while eating oatmeal alone. I can see him drawing a spoon through the stuff, gazing into the glimmering furrows, muttering, and it occurs to me, maybe there is no sublime, only the shining of the amnion's tatters. For supper tonight, I'm going to have a baked potato left over from lunch. I'm aware that a leftover baked potato can be damp, slippery, and simultaneously gummy and crumbly, and therefore I'm going to invite Patrick Kavanagh to join me. Well, now the third, rather new poem, in fact, not quite finished, or almost finished, or written by Christopher Smart. Christopher Smart was a poet who wrote a great many undistinguished poems while he was sane, and then one long, incredibly beautiful poem after he went mad. It's called Jubilate Agno, or Jubilate Agno, if you prefer, Rejoice in the Lamb, and was written between 1759 and 1763. 4 years when he was incarcerated in one madhouse after the other. He wrote it in biblical rhythms and made heavy use of antiphony. He wrote a few lines a day to keep himself sane. In it, he links the human with some other creature or thing in the natural world, as if in a healing roll call. Many of these creatures are real but fantastical, such as the zuni and the great flabber-dabber flat clapping fish. His manuscript lay undiscovered for 150 years and was not published until the 1930s. 40 years after its publication, I organized a reading of Jubilate Agno in a little church on Lower Fifth Avenue with 20 other poets, some of them dear friends of mine and of each other. I've written a long poem about that gathering called Jubilate, yeah. It's too long to read here, all in its entirety, but I'll read parts of it. Where I picked the poem up, Etheridge Knight, Allen Ginsberg, and Grace Paley have already read. And then then this is my description of that wonderful reading, and in honor of Jubilate of all the poets I could scrape up in New York, and they all really loved doing it. So I'll go on. Then Philip Levine spoke, who also had drawn singing breath into himself from Smart's incantatory rhythms in his own great poem, They Feed They Lion. Let Huldah bless with the silkworm the ornaments of the proud are from the bowels of their betters. After him came elegant David Ignatow, followed by the emphatic clarity of Alan Grossman, then Nancy Willard, our magician. Jane Cooper's tremulous piping floated down from the vaulted ceiling to remind us, earth, which is in intelligence, hath a voice and a propensity to speak in all her parts. When my voice takes that unpleasant tone, not unpleasant tone, I'm reading from Smart's words. And the rest are my words. And then Gerald Stern, with his own irrepressible, smarty exuberance, cried out, Eureka! As if he had just learned how to do it that day. The circle may be squared by swelling and flattening. Joel Oppenheimer came next, followed by Harvey Shapiro and Gregory Orr. Lion-lunged Tom Lux roared, for the coffin and the cradle and the purse are all against a man. But Vertime Grosvenor, O Smartian name, whose first language was Gullah, from the tongues of freed slaves in the Sea Islands, called us back to happiness. Rejoice with the pigeon, who is an antidote to malignity and will carry a letter. Next, Paul Zweig, beautiful doomed spirit, declared, for harpsichords are best strung with gold wire. And from Alan Plans, fisherman by trade, let Jude bless with the bream, who is melancholy for his depth and serenity, for I have a greater compass of mirth and melancholy than another. Then Stanley Plumley got up, and next David Cumberland, and next me, and next James Wright, who recited Kit's Eloge to his only faithful companion, his cat, Geoffrey. For there is nothing sweeter than his peace when at rest. There is nothing brisker than his life when in motion. Last at the podium was Muriel Rukeyser, who had once made her own Smartian vow, never to despise in myself what I have been taught to despise, and never to despise the other, and ends her own tender ode to cockroaches thus: I reach, I touch, I begin to know you. As Muriel soared with Kit's Smart's words, the faces in the nave all lifted as one, amazed, all of them, by her huge head, her heart-shaped face, her ferocious beauty, her voice growly at all its edges. For I have a providential acquaintance with men who bear the names of animals. And everyone there was with her in the little church that swelled with light, and the podium too seeming to be trying to raise itself up. For I bless God for Mr. Lion, Mr. Cock, Mr. Cat, Mr. Talbot, Mr. Hart, Mrs. Fish, Mr. Grub, and Miss Lamb. But now we could see that the podium was not rising, but that Muriel was sinking, toppling in fact, hauling down on top of herself the microphone and the amplifier and their wires in a heap on the floor. Then from the wreckage, her suddenly clarion voice sang out, let Zadok worship with the mole. Before honor is humility. When we disentangled her, she sat up and also sweetly smiled and said, she that looketh low shall learn. A woman rushed out the door crying, I'm calling an ambulance. Muriel shouted after her, no ambulances, I need a chair. A plump man came wriggling out of the audience. I'm a doctor, a doctor. No doctors, Muriel shouted even louder. A chair, a chair. Eased into a chair, she remarked with a certain self-satisfaction, "Let carpus rejoice with the frogfish. A woman cannot die on her knees." For all those who were there that evening in 1978 at the Church of the Transfiguration, and those who may have heard about it later, and those of you hearing of it now for the first time, and for Muriel herself, who would die 2 years after that night, and Kit Smart, who had died in 1771 at 49 in debtor's prison, and for those witnesses who are gone now, Paul and Etheridge and Jane and Joel and Alan and Grace and David and James, and the carrier pigeon too. And for the rest of us, still standing or sitting or soon to topple, let all of us rejoice and be made glad. Thank you.